All right, so are you ready to dive deep into some really intriguing stuff? We're going to be looking at excerpts from this document called Ogiovi.pdf, which means Hypnotic Shift of Reality if you don't speak Russian. And this isn't your like typical self-help hypnosis guide or anything.
No.
This document is a bit of a trip, honestly. It blends these practical techniques with some pretty deep philosophical ideas about reality itself.
It really does. It's like the author took a hypnotist's toolbox and a philosopher's notebook,
Yeah,
shook them up, and poured out this incredible mix of tangible and theoretical.
exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. So, what are we hoping to uncover? Well, we're going to explore these techniques, see how they work, and try to understand what they can teach us about hypnosis, self hypnosis, and maybe even the nature of our own perception.
Yeah, and the document, it kind of jumps right into some really unique concepts. One that caught my eye is the idea of constructing very specific imagery and states of mind,
Mhm.
almost like building your own hypnotic world from scratch.
Okay, that's a bit mind-bending already. So it's not just about being relaxed and open to suggestions, it's about actively creating a specific experience in your mind.
Precisely. And the document argues that this is done through something they call displaced causality.
Mm.
Essentially, it means linking actions and sensations that wouldn't normally go together.
Okay, I'm going to need an example here.
Yeah.
How do you displace causality in practice?
Well, imagine using magnets.
Okay.
You wouldn't typically associate magnets with hypnosis, right?
Right.
You hold them, feel their pull, then focus on transferring that feeling of magnetic attraction to other objects
Hmm.
and eventually to your own body.
So you're tricking your mind into experiencing something unusual by connecting it to a familiar sensation, like feeling your hand magnetically stuck to a table even though there are no magnets involved.
Exactly. It's a way of bypassing our logical thinking and tapping into the power of suggestion. The document argues that many traditional approaches to hypnosis, especially those that rely heavily on verbal cues, don't go deep enough.
So this is about creating a more direct, visceral experience. That's really interesting, especially since the author seems pretty skeptical of the standard methods.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense that the author is pushing back against conventional hypnosis practices and advocating for a much more hands-on sensory-based approach.
Hmm.
And it's not just limited to magnets either.
Oh, so there are other techniques. What else does this document have up its sleeve?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that they use pendulums, of all things.
Pendulums, like the ones you see in fortune teller shops. I'm intrigued, but also a little skeptical. How does that work?
It's not about predicting the future. The pendulum's movement creates a visual rhythm that, combined with the feeling of your eyes getting tired, induces a kind of trans-sensory overload. It's like bombarding your senses to create a unique, almost hypnotic experience.
So you're deliberately creating a state of sensory confusion. I'm starting to see how these techniques are designed to shake things up, to kind of disrupt our normal way of perceiving the world.
And what's really interesting is that the document presents all of these techniques for both self-hypnosis and for hypnotizing others.
Okay.
So you could experiment with this on your own or with a willing partner.
Okay, now that's where it starts to feel like we're stepping into some uncharted territory. But before we dive into the deeper stuff, I think it's important to understand the concept of somnambulism as it's described in the document.
Right. Yeah, you're right. This concept is key to understanding the deeper levels of hypnotic experience they're aiming for. In this context, somnambulism isn't about sleepwalking. It refers to a heightened state of suggestibility and reduced self-awareness.
So you're more open to suggestions, but less aware of yourself as a separate entity. It sounds almost like a trance state.
Exactly. And the document suggests achieving this not through relaxation, as you might expect, but by decoupling your attention from your physical gaze.
What does that even mean? Like looking at one thing while thinking about something else?
It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
They suggest techniques where you might be looking at, say, a blank wall, but your mind is focused on a very specific sensation elsewhere in your body. The idea is to create a disconnect between your visual focus and your mental attention.
Wow, I can see how that would be disorienting, but also potentially powerful in terms of shifting your awareness.
And that's just the beginning. The document goes even further, introducing techniques for role-playing and what they call identity dissociation, where you experience yourself as separate from your physical body.
Hold on, we're talking out-of-body experiences here. This is getting seriously wild.
It is. But the document doesn't shy away from the philosophical implications of these practices. They suggest these techniques might offer glimpses into the nature of consciousness and the self, raising questions about what it truly means to be you.
Whoa. Okay, I'm definitely feeling my perception of reality starting to shift a bit here. This document is not messing around.
It really isn't. And we haven't even gotten to the most mind-bending part yet, the concept of reverse causality and the potential for manipulating our perception of time.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. Let's dive into that next. But before we do, I want to hear what's grabbing your attention so far, listener. What stands out to you? What questions are popping into your mind?
Yeah, it's fascinating how this document challenges our assumptions about what's possible, like this idea of reverse causality, that our actions in the present can somehow influence the past. It's like something out of science fiction.
I know, right? It's definitely making me rethink everything I thought I knew about time and reality. But before we get too deep into that, I'm still curious about the practical applications of some of these techniques. What about this idea of shifted causality you mentioned earlier? How does that actually play out in these hypnotic exercises?
Well, remember how we talked about using magnets to create that feeling of magnetic attraction? That's a prime example of shifted causality. The document suggests layering these sensations, creating what they call post effects.
So it's not just a one-time thing. You're building upon those initial sensations to create something more complex.
Exactly. Let's say you've done the magnet exercise and successfully experienced that magnetic pull on your hand, even after the magnets are gone. That lingering sensation becomes like a building block. The document guides you to layer other sensations on top of it, maybe warmth, tingling, or even a sense of heaviness.
So you're creating a whole new sensory reality based on these carefully constructed post effects.
Precisely. It's like becoming an architect of your own experience, using these techniques to shape and mold your perception.
But this can't be easy, right? It sounds like it requires a lot of focus and mental discipline.
You're absolutely right. The document acknowledges that some people might struggle with these techniques,
Hmm.
especially those who are very analytical or attached to their current understanding of reality. They even have a term for it, the stuck subject.
So stuck, meaning they can't quite let go and surrender to the hypnotic process. I can see how that would be a challenge. What about people who have trouble focusing? Is there anything in the document that addresses that?
Interestingly, they talk about the late subject, someone whose attention is constantly jumping around, making it difficult for them to fully engage in the hypnotic experience. For them, the document suggests techniques like hand catalepsy.
Hand catalepsy. What's that?
It's a state where your hand becomes rigid and immobile, almost like it's made of wax. The document suggests using this physical rigidity to cultivate stillness and focus in the mind.
So it's like using the body to train the mind. I've heard of people using meditation to improve focus, but this sounds like a much more direct approach.
It is, and it really highlights the interplay between the conscious and unconscious mind. The document suggests that a lot of our actions and reactions are driven by unconscious processes, and these techniques offer a way to tap into those hidden depths.
It's like there's a whole world operating beneath the surface of our awareness, and these hypnotic techniques are like keys that unlock those hidden doors.
That's a great way to put it. And that brings us back to somnambulism, that state of heightened suggestibility where the conscious mind takes a back seat.
Right, we talked about that earlier. But I'm still a bit fuzzy on what it actually feels like to be in that state. Is it like dreaming or being completely zoned out?
The document describes it as a kind of ego regression, almost like returning to a childlike state of wonder and receptivity.
So less analytical, more open to new experiences.
Exactly. But it's not just about regressing to an earlier stage of development, it's about accessing the raw potential of the unconscious mind, free from the limitations of our adult ego.
And one of the ways they suggest inducing this state is through dissociation, right? Separating our attention from our physical gaze. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
Think of it like this. The hypnotist might ask you to fix your gaze on a specific point, maybe a spot on the wall, but at the same time, they'll guide your attention to sensations in a completely different area, perhaps your hand or your foot.
So you're creating a split in your awareness. Like you're looking at one thing, but your mind is focused somewhere else entirely.
Precisely. And this split allows your unconscious mind to take the reins, bypassing those critical filters that usually govern your perception.
Okay, now we're talking. This is where it starts to feel like we're really venturing beyond the realm of ordinary experience.
Yeah.
But wait, it gets even weirder, right? They talk about dissociating from your physical body altogether.
Yes, they do. The document guides you to experience yourself as an observer, detached from your physical form, able to witness your actions from a completely different perspective.
Whoa, that's a serious out-of-body experience.
It is. And while it might sound like something out of a science fiction movie, the document presents these techniques as practical exercises designed to expand our understanding of the self and the nature of reality.
It's like they're asking, if I can experience myself outside of my body, then what does that tell me about who I truly am?
And the exploration doesn't stop there. They even suggest that it's possible to access the experiences of other individuals, to inhabit different roles and
What,
identities.
are we talking about past life regression here? Or something like that?
Not necessarily. It's more about exploring the potential for identity fluidity, the idea that our sense of self is much more malleable and adaptable than we might realize.
So you could potentially use hypnosis to step into someone else's shoes, experience the world through their eyes, and gain a whole new perspective.
Exactly. They provide concrete examples of how to do this, using techniques like role-playing and guided imagery to create a sense of immersive identification.
It's like hypnotic method acting. You're fully embodying a character, experiencing their emotions, thoughts, and sensations as your own.
And in doing so, you're not just expanding your understanding of that particular character, but gaining insights into the human condition itself.
It's a fascinating way to explore the vast spectrum of human experience, breaking free from the limitations of our own individual perspective.
But it's not all about exploring the inner world. The document also emphasizes how these techniques can be applied to everyday life, especially in communication and influence.
That makes sense. We're all constantly influencing each other, whether we realize it or not. Our words, our actions, even our subtle expressions, they all have an impact.
Exactly. And the document suggests that these hypnotic principles can be used to enhance our communication skills, making us more persuasive, more impactful, and more capable of connecting with others on a deeper level.
So it's not about manipulation, it's about becoming more aware of the subtle dynamics of communication and using those insights to create more meaningful interactions.
Precisely. They offer practical tips for doing just that, emphasizing the importance of building rapport, establishing trust, and framing suggestions in a way that resonates with the other person's values and beliefs.
So it's like using hypnotic principles to become a more effective communicator, whether you're giving a presentation, negotiating a deal, or simply having a conversation with a friend.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most mind-bending concepts in the entire document, the idea of reverse causality.
Okay, I'm ready for another reality shift. Remind me again, what is reverse causality exactly?
It's the idea that our actions in the present can somehow influence the past. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the document frames it as a potential consequence of manipulating our perception of time through hypnosis.
Wait, are they suggesting that we can actually change the past? Like go back in time and alter events?
Not in the literal sense.
Mm.
It's more about reframing our relationship to past events and how they continue to shape our present experience.
So it's not about changing what happened, but changing how we feel about it today.
Precisely. The document suggests that by accessing those deeper states of awareness, we can revisit past experiences with a fresh perspective, potentially altering our emotional responses and rewriting the narrative we've been carrying around for years.
Wow, that's a powerful idea. It's like saying we have the power to heal old wounds and free ourselves from the lingering effects of past trauma.
Exactly. And that's just one of the many radical possibilities this document explores.
Hmm.
It really challenges us to expand our understanding of time, consciousness, and the very nature of reality itself.
It makes you wonder, if our experience of reality is so malleable, what other hidden potential might be waiting to be unlocked? This is incredible stuff.
It is. And it's clear that this document is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to discover, so many more possibilities to explore.
Yeah, it feels like we've been handed this map to like a whole uncharted world, and it's both exhilarating and a little daunting.
It is. It is. That's a great analogy. And just like exploring any new terrain, it's often easier and safer to do it with others. The document emphasizes the role of community in this process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Diving into the depths of consciousness, especially with these kinds of mind-bending techniques, can feel pretty intense. Having a support system, people who understand what you're going through, would be invaluable.
Absolutely. And they actually refer to it as the community, a space where individuals can come together to share their experiences, learn from each other, and support one another's growth.
So it's like a collective exploration of consciousness, a place where you can bounce ideas off others, experiment with different techniques, and push the boundaries of what's possible together.
Precisely. They even suggest that this kind of communal exploration can lead to the creation of shared realities, where a group of people collectively shape and experience a reality distinct from the everyday consensus reality we're used to.
Hold on, are we talking about some kind of hypnotic hive mind here?
Not exactly. It's
Right.
more about recognizing the inherent interconnectedness of consciousness and exploring the potential for creating more harmonious and fulfilling collective experiences.
So it's not about controlling other people's minds, it's about co-creating a more positive and expansive reality for everyone involved.
Exactly. But with that said, they also stress the ethical considerations in this process, acknowledging the potential for these techniques to be misused.
Right. Any tool that can influence perception and behavior can be used for good or bad. It's like they're saying, hey, we're dealing with powerful forces here. Let's tread carefully and make sure we're using them responsibly.
Right. And they offer guidelines for ethical practice, emphasizing transparency, consent, and respect for the individual's autonomy.
So it's about empowering individuals, not controlling them. And ultimately, it seems like this document is all about encouraging self-discovery and personal transformation.
Absolutely. It's about giving people the tools to take control of their own minds, explore the vast potential of consciousness, and create a more fulfilling and meaningful reality for themselves and for the world around them.
Wow, what a journey this has been. From magnets and pendulums to somnambulism and time distortion, my mind is officially blown.
It's been quite the exploration. And it's clear that this document is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover, so many more possibilities to explore.
So, listener, where does this leave you? What's resonating with you after this deep dive? Have you ever felt a disconnect between your actions and your sense of self? What techniques do you use to manage your perception of time and focus? Do you think it's possible to access hidden potential within ourselves through techniques like self-hypnosis? We'd love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your questions.
And as you continue to explore these ideas, I want to leave you with this final thought. If our experience of reality is as malleable as this document suggests, what does that tell us about the nature of reality itself? Could it be that we are all co-creators of our own experience, constantly shaping and reshaping the world around us with our thoughts, beliefs, and intentions?
That's a powerful question to ponder. It seems like we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible. Who knows what other mysteries are waiting to be uncovered in the depths of consciousness?
The journey of self-discovery is never-ending.
And we'll be here to guide you along the way with more deep dives into fascinating topics like this one. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for more mind-bending explorations. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you think is possible.